Imagine waking up one morning and finding out that something you legally owned, something you purchased with your hard-earned money for savings and security, had just made you a criminal. No warning, no debate. Back in 1933, it was a surprise presidential order to confiscate gold from everyday Americans. And suddenly, owning gold was punishable by 10 years in prison or a $10,000 fine. Back then, that was the equivalent of 6 years' salary. In less than a month, Americans turned over 3,600 tons of gold to the US government, all in the name of saving the economy. They called it patriotic, but to many, it felt like theft. A legal seizure of private wealth, done in broad daylight, stolen with the stroke of a pen. Today, we're going to revisit this forgotten chapter in American history, how the gold was taken, why it happened, and whether something like this could ever happen again. By the early 1930s, America was in trouble. The stock market had crashed, banks were collapsing, and millions of people were out of work and out of money and out of hope. It was a national crisis, one where ordinary people lost everything: homes, savings, even their life savings, which were trapped inside failed banks. And with all the financial instability going on, Americans turned to what had always been trusted: gold. They held on to gold coins. They tucked them away in boxes and coffee cans, kept them hidden under floorboards or behind walls, not to get rich, but to survive. Because they knew gold was real, it didn't default, it didn't inflate, and it wasn't subject to the whims of Washington. But behind the scenes, a very different conversation was happening inside the White House. One where the government saw all that privately held gold not as a lifeline, but as a threat. At the time, the Federal Reserve's supply of gold was vanishing. Every day, more was being pulled from the banking system by worried depositors. If it continued, the US wouldn't just lose gold, it would lose its ability to back the dollar and control the entire economy. And so a decision was made, one that would change the nation forever. On April 5th, 1933, just 30 days into his presidency, Franklin Delano Roosevelt signed one of the most controversial executive orders in American history. Executive Order 6102. Its official title: forbidding the hoarding of gold coin, bullion, and certificates. With a single signature, the US government made it illegal for Americans to own their gold. They had 25 days to turn it in, every last gold coin, every gold bar, or face the consequences. The punishment: a $10,000 fine, and back then it was about 6 years of wages, or face up to 10 years in federal prison for simply holding on to what had been legal the day before. Now, there were a few tiny exceptions, like dental gold and certain rare coins, but for the average American, this was a full-scale seizure, and there was no negotiating. In return, the government offered a fixed price, $20.67 per ounce. Take it or face prosecution. But Roosevelt understood something else. Fear alone wasn't enough. So the media campaign began. Newspapers, radio, banks, all echoing the same message. Turning in your gold is your patriotic duty. And it worked. Not through raids, not through violence, but through trust, fear, and guilt. Americans lined up outside banks, handing over gold coins passed down from their grandparents. Wedding gifts, emergency savings, generations of wealth gone in an instant. By the time the 25-day deadline hit in May of 1933, the lines at banks stretched for blocks. Americans handed over their gold coins, often quietly, sometimes with tears. Most believed they were doing the right thing, that they were helping to save their country. In just 1 month, Americans surrendered over 3,600 tons of gold to the US government. That's more than the entire gold reserves of China today. And it wasn't just individuals. Banks, corporations, even charities turned over their holdings. And what did they get in return? Paper money, backed by a promise. But that was about to change. because just 9 months later, on January 30, 1934, Roosevelt signed the Gold Reserve Act and raised the official price of gold from $20.67 to $35 an ounce. That's nearly a 70% increase overnight. The same gold Americans had turned in was now worth far more, but not for them. The government had instantly created billions of dollars in paper profits. It was one of the most lucrative trades in American history, funded by everyday Americans. People thought they were making a sacrifice, only to watch the value of gold skyrocket. Many of those coins came from the California gold rush, passed down from great-grandparents, stored away for a rainy day. It was a bold economic reset. Some even say it was the greatest legal heist in American history. Not everyone went along quietly. One man, Frederick Barber Campbell, a successful businessman from San Francisco, decided to fight back. Campbell owned more than $200,000 in gold bars, a massive amount even for today. And when the government ordered him to surrender it, he refused. He believed the confiscation violated his Fifth Amendment rights, which says, the government cannot take private property without just compensation. His case and several others made their way all the way to the Supreme Court. And in 1935, the court issued its decision. Congress has the power to regulate the value of money, including gold. The confiscation, the revaluation, the entire sequence of events was ruled constitutional. In other words, the rules could be changed. The Constitution didn't protect your gold, especially if the government said it threatened economic stability. For Frederick Campbell, the decision wasn't just a loss, it was devastating. During the court proceedings, he suffered a heart attack and died. The stress, the legal fight, it had broken him. His case became a warning, and the message was loud and clear. Challenge the system, and the system will win. It wasn't just about gold anymore. It was about a precedent, about what a government can do in the name of the greater good, and how quickly rights can be rewritten. Now, you might be thinking, sure, that was 1933. That could never happen again, right? But here's the thing. History doesn't always repeat itself, but it often rhymes. Just like in the 1930s, we're living in a time of serious financial uncertainty. Record national debt at $37 trillion and growing, rising inflation, a banking system that's showing cracks, and a growing distrust in the US dollar. Back then, the gold was seen as a threat to the system. Today, it might be your cash, your crypto, even your retirement account. We've already seen governments around the world flex their power over money. Years back in Cyprus, bank accounts were frozen overnight during their debt crisis. More recently in Canada, protesters had their personal finances frozen. Now, I'm not saying another gold-style confiscation is coming, but I am saying this. When governments get desperate, they can get tyrannical. And when they're deep in debt and short on trust, personal freedom often comes second to institutional survival. So could it happen again? I don't know. Maybe, but let me know what you think down below. The gold confiscation of 1933 wasn't done in secret. It wasn't a backroom deal. It happened in broad daylight. It was framed as necessary. It was sold as patriotic. And for many Americans, it was devastating. More than 3,600 tons of gold gone. But here's what we do know. In times of crisis, governments often reach for control. And when that happens, the rules can change overnight. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think about gold confiscation? Do you think it could happen again, or will it be something else? And if you found this video eye-opening, please do me a huge favor, give it a like and subscribe to stay connected. And if you were wondering if President Trump will still look into the gold at Fort Knox, you need to check out this video up here for the answer. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.